I'm Erik Halterman of RotoWire.com, and in this video, I'm going to share 5 last-minute draft tips to make sure you're in the best position possible as draft season gets down to the wire. Number 1 is that starting pitchers get hurt a lot these days, more than ever it seems, so you need a plan for what to do about that. And the plan can't just be, well, I've got injured list spots, I'll stick my pitchers on the injured list, because with a starter, what you're really worried about is not just what are you going to do with your roster when they miss a week or two at a time. What you're worried about is that your pitcher could go down for 2-3 months, even the whole season, with an elbow or shoulder injury. So it needs to be something beyond just, well, I'll use the IL for that. Your plan could be avoid all early pitchers. Just saying, I have no idea who's going to get hurt. I don't want to waste any early pick. I'm going to load up on pitchers in the back half of the draft. And in a shallower league, this can be pretty attractive because the options on the waiver wire are still pretty good. You can churn through guys late in drafts until you find a full rotation worth of pitchers you actually trust. Another option could be to draft pitchers the same way you've always drafted them, but just make sure that your fantasy ace, your number 2 starter as well, are some of the safest pitchers out there. Of course, the problem with this is, are you any good at finding the safest pitchers out there? Would you have said, for example, that one of those safe pitchers was George Kirby? Because he's already hurt. So if you're going this direction, you could still get hit by injuries. You'll probably get hit by fewer of them, but you may well be in the exact same place that people who are taking the injured pitchers ended up. And the final option here, and this is the option that I think I most prefer, which is to be willing to take some of these risky early pitchers, provided they come at a real discount. Now, this does require accepting that you might just blow your season right away if, say, Jacob deGrom gets hurt again in April. Although, will you have just blown your season right away? Remember how many first-round picks missed an extended time last year? There's no guarantee that you've lost just because you lost one key player. Your league mates are going to lose key players too. This is another approach that is more palatable in shallower leagues because, again, the replacement level's higher. But the point here is you should have a plan. You should have thought about what to do about the fact that starting pitchers get hurt a lot, and you should be able to execute that plan in your draft. Number 2 is that saves are being spread around more than ever these days, and if you're in a standalone league, consider punting the category, or at least soft punting the category. Now, you can't really punt in a league that has an overall component like the RotoWire Online Championship or the NFBC main event. But if you're in a situation where you don't have to win every category, then getting the most total talent is more important than making sure you do well in saves. There's only probably, 18 to 20 true closers out there these days, so maybe if you're in a 10-team league, every single person can have 2 of them, but we don't even need to get to 15-team leagues before there's a real problem. Even in 12-team leagues, there's only about 1.5 legitimate closers that you actually want per team. The early locked-in closers go in the part of the draft where you're picking them over star hitters and really reliable starters. So if you don't want to have 1.5 or even 2 closers, you can just say, you know what, I'm going to skip those guys. I'm going to maybe take one cheaper locked-in closer, like say a Kenley Jansen or a Ryan Presley, somebody like that, who you're not excited about, but who has a job. And then you can try to fight it out in waivers. Personally, I don't plan to go into a draft intending to fully punt a category. I would consider it, but mostly I'm just going to deprioritize saves this year in leagues that are standalone. And if it turns out that the rest of my league is still paying full price for saves, maybe it turns out that I'll punt that category and try to do well in the other ones. Number 3 today is subscribe to RotoWire.com. Just kidding, I wouldn't do that to you. You'll get 5 real fantasy tips that don't financially benefit me in any way in today's video, but you should still go to RotoWire.com, check out the articles, tools, everything we've got to offer over at the website. I do think it will help you win your league this season. Number 3 for real, though, is have a plan for speed. Like we talked about with saves, since they're harder to find, you need a plan for how to deal with them if you want to deal with them at all this year. Steals, you need a plan because they're easier to find. And you can find speed late. I looked at players projected by ATC to have at least 25 steals and who are available after pick 150 in the RotoWire Online Championship. There's a whole bunch. Andres Jimenez, Bryson Stott, Cedric Mullins, Nico Horner, Jake McCarthy, Victor Robles, Michael Garcia, Jacob Young, Jose Caballero. Now compare that to the list of players projected to hit at least 25 homers who are available after pick 150, and you got just 2, Jorge Soler and Michael Tolia. So I think it becomes pretty clear that you want to prioritize power in the early rounds when the power is available deprioritize speed a little bit because you can still get speed late. However, the counter argument here is a lot of the late speed auctions are giving you speed and not much else. So if you want your speed to also come with power or batting average or both, you really do have to pay up. My point here is you need a plan either way, whether that's to deprioritize speed, make sure you're getting that power at the start of the draft, or whether that's to take the speed early when it comes with the rest of your stats and try to grab Jorge Soler and Michael Toglia late. Number 4 is know your sleepers, which you can find by following this channel, subscribing to RotoWire, etc. But also know how your league is likely to view sleepers. Now, if you're in a league where it's a bit more casual and you think not many of your league mates are as plugged in as you are, then knowing all the top sleepers is a huge advantage because that's your draft list, right? You are aware of all the buzzy guys and your league mates aren't necessarily. Find a couple that you really like and make sure you don't block them by drafting somebody boring at their position early in the draft. You're aware of these guys, you're going to get them. Now, on the other hand, if you're in a league where everyone's plugged in, and I mean not just plugged into baseball, but plugged into the fantasy baseball scene, people who are listening to podcasts, watching videos, etc., then your league mates are going to know those guys too, so you could consider actually taking the opposite approach and not totally fading, but somewhat fading nearly all of the hype. It's not that you think the sleepers that we're all talking about are wrong. It's just that you expect everyone in your league to grab them 2-3 rounds too early. If you are in one of those leagues where everybody wants to be the guy to grab the next sleeper, consider going the other way. Consider planning on taking all the boring, solid old guys while your league mates push the unproven sleepers too far up the board. And now number 5 is that, well, you don't have to be 100% strict about it. Make sure you get as much certainty as you can early in the draft and take as many chances as you can afford late. Think of it like the mullet strategy. You want business in the front, party in the back. And if you're watching this far into the video, I'm gonna guess you're at least a pretty good player. You're invested, you're paying attention. That means you should trust yourself that you're good enough to win without doing something crazy. You don't need to stack all the biggest injury risks together on one team and hope that this is the year that they all stay healthy at once. You are good enough to win a league while playing normally. And I'm not a hardline advocate for avoiding all risks in the first 10 rounds or anything like that. Certainly not. But you don't need to take as many as you think. The safer or even moderately safe players in the early rounds are still really, really good, and they're more likely to still be on your team in August and September. There's plenty of high upside risks to take late in the draft, opportunities to differentiate yourselves from your league mates, where the opportunity cost is much lower. So remember, get that certainty while certainty is available. Chase the upside late in the draft once the certainty is gone. That's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, and tell a friend, although maybe not until after your draft ends, I guess. Text it to them, say, you need this for next year, you noob, or something like that. But anyway, do that after your draft to make sure you win first. And remember, head on over to rotowire.com/try for a free look at everything we've got going on at the site. Best of luck with your final draft of the year.